So you are thinking about moving to Colorado Springs. You want to know the good, the bad, the pros, and the cons. Well, in this video, that's exactly what I'm going to be covering from my own personal experiences as a transplant here myself. Now, don't get me wrong, Colorado Springs is a very popular city to live in, but it doesn't come without its fair share of negatives and drawbacks. And you're definitely going to want to hear what I have to say for yourself. So stick around because we're getting into it next. Hey, what's up everyone? Mark Davis here and welcome to the Colorado Springs Life. And if this is your first time on the channel and you want to know everything there is to know about living, working, and playing here in Colorado Springs, then you're in the right place. And if you're also thinking about moving to the Colorado Springs market in the coming months, then give us a call. My team and I, we get contacted from folks all over the country and we absolutely love it. So give us a shout, shoot us a text, send us a DM, email us, whatever works best for you. We got your back when moving to the Springs. Okay, so jumping into the pros and the cons of moving to Colorado Springs. I'm gonna start with my top 5 pros, things that I love, and then we're gonna close out with my top 5 cons. So stay tuned to the very end of this video because you will not believe what I have for my number 1 con based on my own personal experience moving here 7 years ago as a transplant myself. So without further ado, here's what's made my list. Real estate. Colorado Springs is definitely still a very affordable place to live in my opinion. There's a lot of good value here still in Colorado Springs and the surrounding areas. How long that's gonna last, now that is really the question because there's been people flooding here from all over the country. Now I know a lot of people will say that the costs of real estate are going up, and that is very true. But I think that's across the board. It's not just Colorado Springs. I mean, prices of homes have gone up dramatically all across the country. Wherever you're transferring from or moving from, I'm sure that prices have gone up there as well. I think in Colorado Springs though, specifically, our housing prices are still very reasonable considering what the rest of the country is going through as well in terms of housing prices going up. Okay, they say location, location, location. Well, Colorado Springs is all about that location. So we're essentially located right in the middle of the state of Colorado. We're nestled right up against the foothills, the Rocky Mountains, and we're about an hour south of Denver. So we basically have all the modern amenities and conveniences that a large city would have without all of the overcrowdedness, traffic lines, having to wait around and rush hour traffic and having the freeway system be like a parking lot. You don't really have that here. There's about 500,000 people that live in Colorado Springs and about 750,000 people that live in El Paso County, so Colorado Springs and then the surrounding areas. So another thing that people really like about being centrally located is you are very close to nature. I mean, nature here in Colorado Springs is pretty much, right in your backyard. So, I mean, it just depends on the level of nature that you want to work with. I mean, for my family, we like going to parks and hanging out and just, soaking in that nature. That way, it's a little bit more kind of low-key style. But then you can drive just a few miles, Rocky Mountains just right in front of your face. I mean, they just go mile high vertically. So, whether it's going to Manitou Springs or whether it's just, getting off of the beaten path and driving up and exploring for yourself. I mean, there's so much open space here in Colorado Springs that people can't help themselves but to get outside. And if you're somebody that's coming from a city especially, it motivates you to get out there and try new things. Try skiing, try snowboarding, hunting, fishing, things like that. I mean, it's really actually pretty cool. So that's one of the things that we have going for us here. Next is opportunity. Colorado Springs has a lot of opportunities here. If you're looking for maybe a career move, or you're looking, you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to start your own business, this might be a really good place for you to look into as far as all these large corporations that are relocating here on a monthly basis. Startups are being formed here. And so if you're someone with passion and drive and you are looking for opportunities, whether it's starting your own company or taking your career to the next level, Colorado Springs is definitely a good place to look at for a lot of different reasons. Another pro is traveling. If you are somebody that likes to travel, then the Colorado Springs Airport is centrally located, and it's really just about 10 to 20 minutes in any direction here in Colorado Springs. So if you want to go to places like Cancun, Mexico, you want to go to Denver, you can pretty much be anywhere within about 2 to 3 hours from Colorado Springs. So New York, California, Miami, even the northern part of the state, Denver, Boulder, Greeley, you can get there in a very short amount of time. So the Colorado Springs airport has very low prices on flights to Chicago, Denver, Las Vegas, Phoenix, Arizona, Dallas, Houston, Texas. So if you and your family enjoy travel and you're going to be traveling a lot, then you can get to different parts of the country relatively easily and very low cost. So you can definitely get around in different parts of the country using our airport as a jump off point. So Colorado Springs is definitely a good hub, good place to live in and fly out of, whether it's for business or for personal vacation. Lastly, rounding out my top 5 pros, I would say number 1 is the people here. People here in Colorado Springs are extremely, that doesn't sound right, not extremely friendly, like a creepy thing, but people here are just like really real. They're not fake. I think in the Midwest, people are down to earth. They're real. They're not fake. They're very capable with a dash of grit. That's just how I'm going to explain that. But whatever the case may be, is as far as Colorado's concerned, whether it's your neighbors or people that at your church or whatever the case may be, for the majority of the time, people here are extremely friendly, welcoming, and accommodating. And I mean, people here are just, they're just working hard, trying to provide for their family, trying to raise their kids. Colorado Springs is also a very family-oriented city. And I've mentioned that before in other videos, and it's boring here in Colorado Springs. We don't have like a crazy like nightlife and just like all this stuff going on. We're sort of kind of a sleepy town, but it's very family oriented. People here are all about family. I've been asked before by folks that are moving here, new clients that flying from wherever, California, New York, whatever, and they'll be like, what do you think of this neighborhood? And I always do the the typical realtor response, which is, I can't really vouch for any one specific neighborhood because that would not be fair to you. I mean, you should do your own due diligence, look at the Colorado Springs Police Department website, research school test scores, and use your own eyes and your own mind, right? But then they always ask me, well, what do you think? And before I was in a neighborhood and I looked around for a few minutes, looked up and down the street, and it was an older gentleman, and I said, yeah, this is a good neighborhood. And he goes, now how do you know that? How could you possibly know if this is a good or bad neighborhood? And I go, well, since we've been standing here, I've counted 7 American flags hanging off people's front porches, and in my opinion, sir, usually people that spend the time to hang an American flag out in front of their house, they take care of their stuff. And he just looked at me and was like, okay, and then walked off. So, and he was an older veteran, so I think he wasn't expecting me to go at him with that perspective, but that's the kind of perspective that we look at, and we take a lot of pride in that. So now, of course, there are some jerks out there, like anywhere. It's not like everyone here is a saint, okay? But usually, the only time you're going to run into any sort of jerks usually revolves around being on the roads or being on a freeway. And that's really the only time you're going to see. I mean, being in traffic and driving fast and whatnot just comes with the territory. People usually go to the next level when it comes to rush hour for some reason. So you might run into some jerks. I mean, especially if you're driving 55 miles an hour on a freeway, during rush hour traffic and you're holding everyone up. Yeah, you're going to get some dirty looks. You're going to get some, some different things, maybe expressed to you, right? But like, that's anywhere. So as long as you're not driving on the left-hand side of the lane going 55 miles an hour on the freeway during rush hour, you're pretty much going to be all right. All right, so now here comes the cons of Colorado Springs. And I'm just going to break this down and be very real with the cons here. So let's go ahead and get started. So first one that I'll talk about is traffic. Traffic is definitely something that is considered, it's subjective. Some people might say, and I've even said this in different videos, that our traffic's not that bad. But I think that as the city continues to evolve and expand and get bigger, I'm not knocking the city for expanding. I mean, sometimes there's going to be some growing pains with that. So that's what I mean by first con being traffic. I mean, there's going to be some growing pains. There are some growing pains, but our roads are really pretty good, actually. They're not overran. We don't have potholes everywhere. We take care of stuff here. I mean, but it does take time. And that's the only other thing is, so that is causing some traffic, some delays. It seems like something's always under construction here. So ultimately, who knows, maybe in 10 years, everything will be completely done, right? I mean, probably not, right? It's probably always going to have something. They're working on something. But our city is not like an LA or a Houston or, the East Coast, where these bigger cities, they have like all kinds of traffic. It's not like that here. There's just not as many people here. So it's always funny too. People always argue with me about, the terrible drivers are the Californians or the Texans. Before it was just the Californians, but then all of a sudden now they're adding in the Texans. They're terrible drivers too. We also say that natives aren't very good drivers either. At least not like in the snow, natives are the best. The Texans and the Californians have trouble in the snow sometimes. Walkability. Colorado Springs is not very easy to use. We don't have a lot of, we're so spread out. Getting from one place to another, it kind of takes some time. I mean, you're not really walking anywhere. You're not really riding a bike. You are pretty much, you're driving. You need to have a vehicle here to get anywhere. So all these suburbs surround like our city center, our downtown. But our downtown is actually getting better. We don't have any light rail system, unfortunately. That might happen at some point because our footprint is still pretty small. So I could see the city saying, you know what, let's kind of like up in Denver, they have the 16th Street Mall where they closed down that entire, handful of blocks. It's just the 16th Street is just one long stretch with all these shops, and then buses run up and down, back and forth, right? And no cars can get in there. So you have bikes, scooters, buses. I could see us adopting something like that for downtown Colorado Springs, like Tejon being like just, you can't drive through it. You just, that would be pretty cool. So don't have that yet. That's just me speculating. But could we build a light rail system in the future? Yeah, I think that would be something that would be really cool. A push towards that, it's all these electric scooters, these e-scooters that are really pretty cool. I mean, I haven't been on one yet. It's kind of on my list. I might do a vlog episode, a series that I'm working on right now where I actually ride those scooters, kind of like, Casey Neistat style, and just do like a vlog and be riding that scooter and just cover all kinds of ground like downtown. So that's going to be pretty fun. I'm working on that right now, actually. But anyway, these e-scooters are just parked, in these little specific areas all throughout downtown. I see more and more of them all the time, and you can pretty much just register on the website or your app, get on that thing, turn it on, it gets you access, charges you, boom, it's so quick right on your phone, and it tracks you, it GPSs the scooter so it knows where it's at, so you can pretty much drive it to a grocery store or wherever, a bar or whatever, and then just leave it there, and then just get an Uber home or ride home with somebody or whatever, and it'll literally just that's cool. You don't have to return it to, you can drive until it runs out of battery, I guess. I think that's actually really cool that the city is investing in that. Public transportation is another one we're not super strong in that here. We don't rank very high when it comes to public transportation, that sector. And we're working on that. I'm not knocking our bus system, but I have noticed that there aren't a lot of buses. There are some on Academy. You'll see buses up and down Academy, Main Street. And then you do see some, the more closer you get to downtown. I've been in cities that's it's super strong. You don't have to have a car at all. You can just get from one place to another quickly, no issues. I mean, it's just like a complete infrastructure built out. We don't have that. So that's why I'm ranking it as a con. So if you're somebody that doesn't like to drive or you don't have a vehicle, that is the very first thing that you will need here in Colorado Springs. You can probably get around without one for a while, but like I said, you definitely want to have a car here in Colorado Springs, especially when the weather changes and it gets cold here. So next, one of my favorite cons to talk about, just because it's so dynamic, there's so much to it, is our weather here. And I've done a video on this. I've talked about the static electricity that's in the weather. I've talked about the wind that's here with our weather, the crazy windstorms that we have. I've talked about volatile hail, volatile snowstorms, flash snowstorms, flash windstorms, flash hailstorms, if I didn't mention that, hailstorms. I mean, if you are not, if you just think it's mild here, it's not mild here. Colorado, especially, even more so than some areas around the country where it'll just snow, and it's kind of like it's predictable. It's going to be cold, there's going to be snow, you're used to it, it is what it is. We get peppered with snowstorms out of nowhere. It could be spring, boom, all of a sudden it snows. It could be so nice for so long, and then all of a sudden we just get hammered with crazy hail. There could be thunderstorms, lightning, hail, crazy rain. We could get floods, not too much floods, but like, I just mean like the rain level, the water level changing. It's just kind of like that adventurous sort of, area of the country. People are down to get into adventure here. People are rugged here. That's another word. They're gritty. And they're rugged, right? So big. This is off topic, but Jeeps, the Jeep vehicle, the Jeep brand is big here. I bought a Jeep, and I like Jeeps, man. They're like, if you could take one vehicle, this is off topic again, and put it on Colorado, that'll describe it all right there. Jeep culture, Jeep vehicles, that's Colorado. Now we're starting to see some Teslas. That's not Colorado though, as far as anyone's concerned. All about Jeeps. 4x4, all-terrain vehicle, that active lifestyle. You could take the top off, you could rock crawl, go wherever you want to go, do whatever you want to do. That, you got winches, you helping people out, pulling people in it, out of tough situations, whatnot. That's the Jeep culture, the Jeep vehicle. That is literally like the Colorado style vehicle. And but yeah, like I said, the weather constantly changes. We get hailstorms, we get lightning, there's a lot of static electricity. You're always touching stuff, you're gonna be shocked. I did a video on that, it's kind of funny, but that's just me personally. Like, I just touched and boom, shocked. I had a client that bought a house quite a few years ago, and we were doing the final walkthrough, and he was getting shocked every time he flipped open a light switch. He was getting and I would see it, I would hear it. And he goes, "Yeah, Mark, you need to make sure that we need to put in a request to have this house grounded." Customer's always right. So, but we don't ground houses. It's just electricity. So he was dragging his feet a bunch, and he was getting shocked, but I thought that was funny. So be prepared for hail, lightning, crazy volatile wind all throughout the year. It usually seems like we get the biggest shifts in weather, volatile weather, whenever there's a seasons changing. So you're going from spring to summer, there's gonna be a bunch of shifts that you don't expect. It's not gonna be like birds and butterflies and just springtime and summertime. All of a sudden, there's gonna be hail coming through, wind coming through. Okay, so then all of a sudden you get into the dead of winter, the fall season, the winter season, and you're expecting cold. It might be a little cold, but it's like sunny, 70 degrees. Then all of a sudden we get a snowstorm. And then the next day, it all melts off. It's 70 degrees again. You got a snowstorm and then 70 degrees. So Colorado Springs just never lets up, never lets you rest. The weather is just very extreme from 1 minute to the next. They always say, if you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes. So I definitely think that's true. So I'm just gonna get this one out of the way right now. If you don't like guns, you might as well not bother even moving here. Colorado Springs is home to folks that really, really like their guns. I mean, guns here, people have more guns here than they do family members. So people here are big proponents to the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. You might see people walking around with handguns, firearms, and tools here. It is kind of the culture. You'll find that Colorado Springs is open carry. So that's very common here. And people defend that right to bear arms very strongly, very seriously. So, and everything that represents. So whether it's, sport shooting or hunting, or whether it's just, open carry, you will see people, walking around in a grocery store with, just like strapped with, with just like a gun, holster, gun right there. And you just kind of just look at them, and that's it. I mean, if anything jumps off, that's the person I want to be hiding behind, is the dude with the gun, right? But yeah, that's a little bit different than other parts of the country. Also, we have a large military community here, which The military, I mean, obviously, you know, that's tools of the trade, right? So that is something that might be different from what you're used to. Next on my list of cons, and this is kind of a funny one. This is not meant to insult anybody or knock anybody for anything, right? But I would say that fashion, we're not strong in fashion. We're not, this isn't the fashion capital of the world at all. People in Colorado Springs, all in all, prefer comfort and functionality over the latest styles or trends. I know in other parts of the country, you leave your house, you're trying to impress. It's like every day is a job interview. It's like you're out there trying to like make statements, make moves with your fashion, right? You get here and people just look at you like, where are you coming from, the circus? Like they don't even, it doesn't even register with them. And I think that's kind of funny, you know, because, you know, I'm not the foremost expert in fashion at all myself. Like, don't get me wrong. It's not like everyone's, you know, people don't dress bad or anything like that, but people are not, I wouldn't say they're really, they leave their front door, their house, comfortable. They go to the grocery store, comfortable. They go to church, comfortable. I mean, like other parts of the country, Sunday best, you're dressing up. You're wearing a suit. You are wearing a full-blown suit. You're wearing your Sunday best, right? I go to, you know, church and people are just like dressed like normal. Like back in the day when we were kids, it was, you know, your dress clothes and your play clothes. They're just wearing play clothes. T-shirts, jeans and t-shirts, tennis shoes. In church, no problem. So again, it's not, I'm not trying to knock anybody, but you know, you move here and you get more comfortable. I don't know if that's such a bad thing, a con, but it could be a pro because people here are just more real. Like they're not so much trying to impress you. They're just being real. They're just doing their thing. Now, here's the con. Herein lies the con to this, right? So you've been here for a few years, 2-3 years. You move here, you meet Mark Davis. I help you buy a house or whatnot. Then you go back to see your friends and family in California or New York or somewhere else, and they might not recognize you. There you go. So you're gonna grow your hair out long, start wearing flannel shirts everywhere, overalls. People wear overalls. We're not farmers. People don't wear overalls. So that rounds out my cons. I have one more for you, and this is the one that you've been waiting for. My number one con here in Colorado Springs has got to be housing costs, housing prices. Now, I know I said earlier that that's a pro, which it is. It just depends on your perspective. I mean, what's expensive to one person might not be expensive to another. So it's really subjective. But the facts do remain that our housing prices have gone up considerably over the last 8 years. And I would say dramatically over the last 5 years. I mean, I remember, you know, 5, 6, 7 years ago, you could buy a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2,000 square foot home here for, you know, $250,000. You know, and I remember clients saying, when prices started going into the threes, I remember them saying that's expensive. You know, that's crazy. I mean, I remember when I bought my first house, the rate was like 9 1/8, and I was happy about that rate because I was like, it's not double digits. And so the rates were really high as far as I was concerned back then, and I still got into the market. So the rates being 3, 4, 5% is still so good. So you just deal with what the market is presenting you at the time, because we can't go back in time and we can't go forward in time. We can only deal with what's right in front of us. The 400s is kind of the median price point. You know, 420 I think is the median price point. Last time I checked, 418 I think it was what it was. I did a whole video on that, so definitely check that video out that I did on the cost of living here in Colorado Springs. I break it down on a granular level, the cost of living here, what that looks like. So, but for the most part, I still think that you can get a lot for your money here still. That's my take on valuation for Colorado Springs and the housing market. Now, if you're still considering moving here and you want to know more about what Colorado Springs has to offer, then start by subscribing to the channel, hit that bell notification button so you never miss out when we drop a new video. And as always, my friends, until next time, Mark out.